So I'd like to call this finance meeting committee to order, please. Do we pledge of allegiance or not? I'm not sure if someone can help. Thanks.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks everybody for coming up. Greatly appreciate it. From what I understand, I didn't have an opportunity to be here as far as Monday evening, but the workshop was a bit unique, I guess, perhaps might be the word, or I'm not quite sure how to describe it from some of the things, comments that I heard back. But from speaking to Richard and my thought is, we'd like to be able to feel comfortable to go forward to Mark, with a budget approximately 4% of current year. Okay, so based on if all the assumptions come through, we're still looking at 4.9 or 5.
Yeah.
So I mean, is there and can there be any play within those numbers and within our numbers, so that we as a committee, can go to the full board to say, listen, this protects our kids, but we're also physically responsible to the city. And you know what? We kind of leave the numbers as they are, what they are, because they are what they are. A lot of times it's contractual obligations, but let's see, that'll be kind of, so to speak, the stepping off point. So can we, or is there an opportunity to kind of review the numbers, analyze them, look at them, pare them down, see if there's any room, margin, negotiations that we can, bring it down, within a 4% range.
Typically what we do, Rich, is we'll do our due diligence as a staff and a board subcommittee, or rather committee of the board, and talk it through and go line by line or big ticket items by big ticket items, and then based on an understanding of what the current document looks like, then the board turns around and says, what about this, what about that, goes through some policy conversations,
Okay.
and then brings it back to the full board, and that's when the number tends to get finalized. And so this is, as Sal's been saying, this is a work in progress. It's a working document. We never anticipate that the original number will be the firm number. And I don't think in past 20 years that's been the case. So we need to vet it out, and then we'll probably modify the bottom line by the time that process is done.
Well, with that, I mean, Ed, where do you stand in terms of the assumptions, and are we comfortable with that?
Can I do two things first before
Absolutely.
we get to the assumptions? There were two questions at the last meeting, one on the board, wanted to know the net current expenditures by the DRGs, because I gave you an average and so forth, so I have that.
Here.
So I just wanted to give you that information. Also, I'm just doing some research on, they asked how come Danbury doesn't get as much as Stanford and Norwalk and so forth. So went on the state website, and our wealth, Danbury's wealth is numbered, is 23, it's 93. So we get approximately $22.8 million on ECS. East Hartford their wealth is 162, so they get 41.7 million in ECS. Meriden, they're 161, and they get 53.7 ECS. But if you go to Norwalk, where they're 32nd, they only get 10 million. And if you go to Stamford, they're 30th, so they only get 7.9 million. West Haven is 157, so they get 41.3 million. So we do get more than Stamford and Norwalk because of their wealth is higher than ours, but we get less for the other towns, Meriden, East Hartford, Norwich, and West Haven, because their wealth is below us. So that's,
Well, if I could, is that lump sum or is that per pupil?
that's lump sum, 22 million they get.
Okay,
Yeah.
but how would that translate as far as on a per pupil basis?
I did not do that, I'll have to look at that.
You know, that I feel would be much more important, as well as, you know, a per pupil basis based on, you know, our demographics versus other municipalities within, you know, perhaps, you know, New Britain has the same, you know, demographic makeup.
Yeah.
Or, you know, perhaps a Waterbury. And again, I have no idea, just kind of throwing out municipalities that are perhaps equal in size or perhaps somewhat larger, somewhat smaller than Danbury. You know, we're seeing clearly a rise as far as our enrollment. Well, if the number remains stagnant, you know, then our actual expenditure per student continues to go up, but also our reimbursement goes down, and that's where the gap comes in. So, you know, we've got to look at it on a per pupil basis more so than a lump sum basis, in my opinion.
The second item was brought up, you know, they throw away the 3 million, 2 million left and all that at the end of the budget. So as of June 30th, 2011, okay, the last day of the fiscal year, the board received information that they had a projected surplus of $57,865. I'm gonna write this up to the council and everybody, but I just wanna get, you know, I just started my research. We also had, at the end of that year, we got $3,261,000 from ERA. So that had to be given back to the city because we get the money and so forth. So that was another $3 million. But people were saying, where's that $3 million? That was the ERA money that we get, and we had to credit the city for that.
Okay, now,
Can you explain what that is?
exactly.
Yeah.
I hate to interrupt.
No, that's okay.
We're green, this is.
No,
this is
okay.
scary.
Under Obama's, what would you call it?
So federal money, federal grant?
Federal money, right.
As I'm to understand it from Richard, it was basically late coming from us, so we borrowed from the city.
Well, that's different, that's different.
Okay,
That's
sorry.
different,
Okay,
that's
please.
different. The city received probably about $6 million over 2 years. And what they did with it, there was agreements between different cities and boards of ed of how you dealt with the money. They credited, we gave them the money, $3 million, and they credited our accounts, mostly payroll accounts for that $3 million. So at the end of the year, if you I'll give you the budget out, it was $3 million less actual because we had to give the $3 million back, and they credited our accounts with that. So that was the ERA money. It was used for salaries, and I wasn't here, so that.
It was designed to put people back to work from the Obama administration because of the economic conditions. So we knew that we could either turn it down and not have that opportunity, or take it, but realize that it was going to be a finite window. So the decision was made, let's take it, and at least for a couple of years, it's going to help us go forward.
But it was figured in our budget and given it to the city, so they had to credit back to us. So we didn't lose anything. It's just the accounting mechanism of how they did it. Versus the jobs where we got a separate grant, and we had to put, it was a separate grant, so we had to put teachers on that grant. And we lost that grant, and that goes away. But this was an agreement with the city, and most of the boards of ed and cities did the same thing. It's your money, it's our boards of ed money, but we'll credit your account to give us that money. So that was just a wash item. really.
But when it goes over multiple years, how do they do that? Do they put it back in and then take it back out? You said it was over.
Over 2 years. It's the same way they did it both years.
Oh, okay.
Right. So it was really a wash item versus the Educational Jobs Act where it wasn't a wash item. We have to put those
That's right.
back.
Right, exactly.
So we have 57,000 that the board said was a surplus. We had the 3.2 million, which was the board surplus. And then at the end of June 30th, we have to give a list to the auditors of all the encumbrances. Anything now, any PO that was written before June 30th and that was not paid for will be paid for after July. We have to put that in a separate account and account for that. That total was a total of $3.2 million that was put aside for all those POs that were open. Now, roughly 20 of those POs totaled 2.5 million. And what those 20 were included special ed tuition because we don't get the bills to July. So we owed Ben Haven 8,000, we owed the Center for Children 2,000, Center of Hamden 29,000, and Education Connection 22,000. So those were some of those, and I have all this written. Once I get the letter out, you'll have it all. The second big item, another big item, was Cigna, our benefits. So we didn't pay that money yet. We have to pay it in. They give us the bills and so forth. So we had to put away $825,000 in that account until one IB&R incurred claims but not reported. That was $425,000 that we do every year. And then the other items we're self-insured for drugs and dental. So that was another $400,000 that we had to pay because we wait till the end of the month and pay that. So that was $825,000. The next big one is the city of Danbury. We put aside $1.1 million that we owed. One of them was the workers' comp, and there was a couple of other items that, and I'll break those down for everybody. 1.1 million. We had a CLMP, 21,000. We had transportation. A number of transportation bills were. I have it somewhere. It was about 248,000 because we wait till they bill us after the month, so we have to encumber that money. We had a United Alarm, we had Yankee Gas, so all those, probably 20 of them counted for 2.5 million. We also had $105,000 of grant encumbrances, so that's also a list that we give the city. And the remaining was 626,000 of supplies and materials. So out of that total encumbrance was 3.2 million. Now, we start paying off those encumbrances. So by the end of probably the end of February or March, if they're not paid off, we'll close most of them, and whatever's left goes to the city as their surplus. So that's how it works. So at the end of June, Sal must have come to the board and said, here's 57,000, and this will do from now on. We'll tell you what each encumbrance is and so forth. We have a list of all of 43 pages of all the purchase orders and so forth and the amounts. And we work off that on a monthly basis as we get the bills. And we close. Some of those bills may be more than what we budget, what the encumbrance was. Some are less. So at the end of March, hopefully, we go through that to make sure everything is done. Another standing operating procedure, which I'm only here new, what I normally like to do is April, we go see what purchase orders are 30, 60, 45, 90 days old. And we go back and say, okay, we're going to cancel those purchase orders. So we know ahead of time roughly what our encumbrances are going to be. So that's what we'll start doing. So that's just a quick update. I'm going to put this in a letter form to the board and to the council next week. So I just want to give you a heads up what it is.
So in your opinion, the comments, and again, unfortunately I wasn't here Monday night, but in your opinion, from the Board of Education side, the close of the calendar year last year, $57,000 was returned to the city,
Correct,
not this exorbitant amount that
Correct.
they.
correct, right.
Okay.
Which is typical, by the way, of what we typically give back less than 1/10 of 1%.
Okay.
Which accounting-wise is very stringent.
Then it takes really 6 or 7 months to get all the extra.
Oh, clear,
Yeah.
clear, right. But-
Did we receive the packets? Did we
Yeah.
then, I mean, so forth.
Yeah.
The auditors come in, we give them, here's the thing, well, this one I don't like, we're gonna eliminate it.
Well, to your point, if it's an open PO, 45, 60 days, purge it out, so it's
Yeah.
not, so it's not, okay.
So so I just wanted to make it clear for,
Sure.
did our research and I'll have that. Next item, you wanna,
Well, we don't want
what? What?
that. More paper.
Well, this is the budget, okay? What I've given you is two documents. The first document is every account quickly. Here's every account and what the dollar figure is. So there's 5 pages of what each account looks like. Just, assistant principals, here's the dollar figure and all of that. The second document is all of those accounts, what they are, what they look like, the detail of all of them. Also, this first document does not, and the second document does not put in any projected budgets. Remember, on the new financial statements, we have projected what the ending accounts will be. It's just the budget, just 2 actuals versus the budget. Also, on the right-hand side, it just shows you the percentage increase. The first 2 pages, you're gonna see increases because of contractuals. There's a number, I would say probably, and I shouldn't say that, a number, maybe half the accounts or more, I didn't add them up, are 0, because we did not increase them. Remember, we said we're gonna straight line all of those accounts, except for the added items that we put in, and the contractual obligations, and the insurance, social security, and busing, and so forth.
The front page here is saying fiscal year 2012-13.
Right.
And after that, it's saying 2011 and 2012. Page.
Oh, that, yeah.
So
that-
so
yeah.
is that?
It's all the
that's
same, I just,
changed,
yeah,
or-
yeah, I did not, I wrote in the first one, it's all the
Okay.
same. I didn't have a chance to
Yeah, no,
eliminate
I
that.
just want to make sure.
Yeah, no, you're right, it's all the same. I know there's a lot but I think as you've given our orders to look at, if we're gonna look at 4%, we're still looking at the bus company. I spoke to them again today. We won't have a figure in from Cigna probably February 15th. We're still working with the city on the park and rec. We can make some assumptions, and that's why it's a working document, that if we go down to 5% for Cigna, what does that mean, and so forth, we can make those assumptions. Again, as I said at the last meeting, we told Cigna we want a 0, which won't happen. We told them also that we're gonna go to the state, we're filing those forms to the state to see what they come back when they have their actuaries, Merriman. So we're still working on those things. But also we'll drill down on all the other accounts, come up with, to look at that.
What are we talking per person or per family on insurance? I've seen the big numbers, but,
24,000.
24,000
For family.
per family.
okay, now, dare I ask, if it's an answerable question, why is that so high? I mean, my wife and I, before we got really old and went on Medicare, you know, we were buying our own insurance. We were both in our 60s. There was no, you know, insurance company spreading the risk over a wide range of ages or a wide range of people. And we were paying $14,000 a year. And that was only a couple of years ago. How do you get from there to a school system that's got 2,000 people, the last time I heard, to spread the risk, all ranges, and you're paying over $20,000 a person? I just don't understand it.
I'm not sure there's an answer to that. I mean, one of the things, I like you, had a similar experience. I was in a family pool before I came here through Blue Cross. And we, several years ago, were up to almost $1,500 a month, just paying out of pocket. So I'm not sure that our number, it was for a far less rich plan too. So I'm not sure that our numbers are all that out of whack with that pool number. But I will tell you, because I spent actually a fair amount of time with the city today talking about insurance benefits and the contracts that they've been negotiating. And the most that they've been able to shave off the size of that package looks to me like it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $5,000 a person in family coverage, which on its face appears to be quite a bit. But the problem is that that tends to be with the HSAs, these healthcare savings accounts. And the experience on those is so unclear at this point. And you know, we can share a lot of the details as the negotiating committee comes together, but I'm not sure that anybody is seeing any place that's the silver bullet on how to really cut the insurance costs. I think I'm coming to the conclusion, and again, at the finance department today, we talked a little bit about it, that the concessions that we negotiated, particularly the teacher's contract, were pretty good. And those have not worked their way through the original budget numbers. So, you know, they haven't been costed into Cigna's numbers, so that will bring it down some. And again, we're really hopeful that as we go into negotiate with these non-certified groups, we're going to replicate at least that and maybe some of these savings that the city is trying to get in these other plans. So that's a long answer of, I'm not sure that the number, the 24, is so crazy, but that we continue to look at ways to shave the number in any way we can through a variety of plans, design or changing plans entirely.
Almost looks to me like the insurance companies think we're a city, so we have deep pockets, so they're just gonna charge.
That's why we get reports, we look at them, how we, from January 2011 to December 2011, our ratio is 90%. You know, it's not 100%, it's 90, so for every dollar that we give them, they only put out 90 cents of the dollar for claims. So we're working on how to reduce that experience rating, and that experience rating goes down, you know, your percentage increase goes down. So that's what we're looking at, and we're pulling off a bad year, putting off a bad month, bringing back a good month. So we're looking at that, and with the changes that they made, hopefully that will reduce that 25,000. But, you know, past years, I don't know, I haven't looked at that, what the experience was and how they broke it. As you know, we're self-insured for prescription and for dental, and you know, that's another area that we're looking at.
Thank you.
In the past, have we offered an incentive to get off of our programs, to get off of our insurance?
The only unit that has that is the school lunch, which is a pretty small unit.
Okay.
But that contract does have a provision where we pay you a small amount of money in order for you to not take the benefits because you get them elsewhere.
Right.
That's the only contract that has that in it right now. There's some discussion about whether, there's a lot of discussion going on about who's going to represent our custodians union, but there's some discussion there about, in some situations, there are collective bargaining organizations that will let you go on their insurance plan, and then they essentially bill us to pay an amount of money that is less than what we're paying for our share.
Correct.
And those are all contract negotiating issues that we're looking at for the spring. But the problem is that we're trying to be sort of cautiously optimistic about the estimates because we just don't know where they're going to come in.
Where I was before, our teacher's contract had that option, and honestly, very few people ever took it. I mean, the only time you have that is if you had two teachers, and they would want one in another district. But yeah, very few that didn't go on the plan.
Well, and I guess that's my point.
Yeah.
That I personally, you know, if my wife had insurance, she does not, but if my wife had insurance, my employer would actually penalize me because he wants her insurance to pick up their fair share of our family.
Yes,
Yep.
you're right.
And it seems as though that's not done within the existing insurance programs here. So that if it is a two-income family, you know, more often than not, the spouse that enjoys our benefits is taking them, and the other company kind of riding free. So, I mean, would it be, or could it be possible to make it extremely incentive to them, like extremely, you know, beneficial to them? Perhaps a $2,500 signing bonus and $7,500 paid over the course of a year. All right, we give them 10 grand to get off of our insurance, but yet we're making it up versus 25,000 that we're paying. I mean, I don't know what some of the plans that were previously proposed, and can we do this, or you know, do we need to go to, you know, contract negotiations and everything else? I mean,
That's the avenue.
how would we go about that?
Well, I mean, there's two different things at play. One is certainly it's on the table for contract negotiations, and you know, there's the 4 non-certified groups, and then the administrators, not for this coming up year, but the following year, are going to a reopener for wages and benefits. So those people are on the table. So it's certainly something we could negotiate there. I guess the other question is, if we wanted to do something voluntary, and I have to give that a little bit more thought, but if we wanted to do something purely voluntary, kind of like we do the early retirement idea, I suppose and again, I'm kind of speaking off the cuff, I suppose we could look at a model like that. The problem is that we couldn't compel anybody to do it.
No, no.
And it would have to be a purely optional.
You also have to look at the number of people who go off the plan, okay? And the number of people who are still on the plan, okay? That reduces your number of experience to
Sure.
go over
Sure.
a
It's full
smaller frame. So if let's say the healthy people go off the plan, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
And you still got the unhealthy people,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? You're gonna, over the lives, it's gonna shorten the number of lives, so you have to pay more.
Right.
So I'm just saying that's
No,
some of
no,
the
no,
arguments
no.
that
Yeah.
people.
And again, that's where we would have to come up with, you know, some type of strategy that makes it beneficial for us as the Board of Ed for insurance premiums, you know, but at the same respect, an incentive to them to say, hey, listen, you know what, 10 grand with a $2,500 bonus, you know, sign-on bonus, or, you know, upfront, you know, wow.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so I you know, personally, I feel that it should be considered.
That's the exact strategy we used when we went with the early retirement package.
Okay.
It was win-win.
Right.
So it was beneficial
Yeah.
to both sides, and that's why it went. That's
Right.
why folks voted.
And I mean, the biggest thing, and again, I come from a business background, so anytime I look at numbers, I kind of tend to look toward what I refer to as needle movers. And by that is the biggest piece of the budget. Because if I can move those 2 points, then I can, you know, I can supplement a lot of lesser programs, you know, to bring them up to par. I mean, if you're speaking about 2 or 3% of 25 million over an insurance package, that's a huge number, you know, versus, you know, cutting sports, you know, freshman sports for 60 grand. I'm sorry, there's just no comparison. So again, I kind of like to look, and if we could, kind of analyze, again, as I refer to it as needle movers, and say, where can we and what can we do to kind of see if we do have some play within those numbers. Another very big one, and you know, Mr. Glass mentioned it previously, was the internship program from the University of Bridgeport. You know, our substitute, the expense as far as our substitute teachers is big. You know, if we can save 15-20% there, I mean that's $400,000.
We looked into that just this week, actually. We asked for 8 interns this year. We were given 6. That's all the university could offer up. 2 of whom backed out almost immediately, and we're down to 2 now. What happens with the intern program? The university, we pay the university a fee. It's less than it would cost us for a full year of a sub. The university takes that fee, and basically the student gets a free college degree, except they have to work full-time as a sub with us. So it works all the way around, except there used to be a stipend paid to that student in addition to the free coursework. The university has pulled that stipend, and now their pool of potential interns apparently has dropped dramatically. So they're talking about phasing the program out next year. We hope they don't, because it's worked well for us, for the very reason that you mentioned.
Well, If I could ask Kim, how many applicants did you receive for teaching positions this year?
Elementary school applications ran almost 300 a slot. It was a lot of people. But I will say one of the things that has been puzzling me for some time, which is coming through from ASOP, is that we have 180 names in the pool of substitute teachers, and only a third of those people take a slot. I mean, so on any given day, only a third of that pool volunteer to sub. So my inclination was, it's crazy, we should have subs all over the place because all these people were vying for elementary school positions and they're all in the pool. The problem is that they're in the pool here, they're in the pool in Ridgefield, they're in the pool in New Milford, and so, you know, to get those people spread around in all those towns, we're having trouble raising the bar. So one of the things that I've got somebody in my office looking at is kind of calling surrounding district to see if that 35% is an average number or if there's something about here that's making that number suppressed. I suspect it's an average though.
Of those 300, how many were recent grads, would you say?
Not sure, because we had a lot of people come to us after some of the bigger districts were riffing people last year. You know, a lot of districts laid off teachers in the last year particularly.
Right.
So we got a lot of people who were, you know, 3, 4, 5 step people who
Right.
had been part of layoffs. So I can't say that it was all new teachers. I think we had a lot of displaced people.
I've heard of other programs where a recent grad with a teacher certificate, unable to find a job, has been offered an internship program within a public school system. And basically they're a floater. You know, they may, you know, if they're certified as far as K through 4, and they have the opportunity to basically network within, so getting into the school district, but they're not actually hired by the district. They're actually hired as an intern. So no benefits, but, you know, again, kind of a stepping stone or a foot in the door. You know, have you heard of such a program, and do you think that could possibly work within our district?
The programs that I've heard are more like the ones that Dr. Glass is
Yeah.
describing. And so, and I don't know, I know we looked at, didn't we look at UConn at one point? There were some reasons why we couldn't take NAIC school people as well. I mean, I think that was part of the problem. And the only other issue that I put on the table, and it requires a little bit more detail as we talk, but the only other issue I would say is if those people are coming in and working every day, then we're going to have teacher union issues. Because those people are going to look like teachers who should be paid under the contract because they're working every day and they're certified.
The program I'm familiar with is called Teacher at Large program, where it's the exact person, the profile of the person that you described. They're hired as first-step teachers, first-year teachers. There are no positions for them. In a district larger than ours typically, but let's say our district would hire maybe 10 teachers at large. There is no slot, but we know over the course of a year something's going to open up, definitely over 2 or 3 years. They're working full-time as a teacher, but they're assigned at will, right through the personnel director. So I have an opening at Shelter Rock today, tomorrow you might be at the magnet school. And so the strength of that is I get my foot in the door, you get to know me, I get to know your schools, I get paid first-year teacher pay. And then when something opens, you've had a chance to really vet me. And so they typically slide into those positions. The downside is that they're much more expensive than hiring a per diem sub or an intern. Intern's the cheapest, the per diem sub comes next, and it's a big jump for this teacher at large because they go on the benefits pack and that gets thrown in as well.
Yeah, the intern position that I've heard and some knowledge about, you know, is the lower tier.
Yeah.
You know,
That's the one that we're using with you.
The $16,000-$18,000 per year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
basically.
We
Yeah,
pay even less than that.
the other thing that
About 12.
The other thing that, you know, Dr. Sell had me looking at last year, and we haven't looked at it again in a while because we wanted to see how the ASOP thing rolled out. We had 2 big things happen. One is we rolled out this ASOP program. The other was we had a significant contract language change. It used to be that when we put in a long-term sub, those people came in at the level, whatever step that they had experience in. And the new contract language says when you come in as long-term sub, you're BA step 1. So that also was a significant change. And we were looking to see how those translated into savings in the budget. But one of the other ideas, and we do this at the high school, the secondary level, because it lends itself to this, is kind of this cadre sub idea where we would commit to, 90 days of the year. So we would employ you, we would guarantee you a 90-day slot. and we would pay you X amount of money, which would probably be slightly higher than the $90 a day we pay a regular sub. And that would mean we would need to assure you of a spot, and if you didn't have 90 days, we were going to pay you for the 90 days anyway. There's lots of just anticipation problems, trying to figure out, how many of those we would be able to keep using. And I say we're doing that a little bit at high school because that's the easiest place to do it, because there's all different sorts of absences on a period by period basis. And so we have people designated up there to fill in all those slots, to also save us some money from other teachers covering open classes. So we're still kind of continuing to look at it. But this cadre sub idea is probably very similar. It would cost out to similar numbers as what you're talking about. But it requires us to really try to hone in on how many we think we need, and that's a little bit dicey.
With your new system, can you ask for, like, let's say you're an English teacher,
Mhm.
can you ask for a sub in English?
Yep.
So,
Yep. It has what they call a skill matching
okay.
piece. And so, and again, really new to Danbury, we've never done this before. And so what we were able to do is, as we pulled sub applicants off of AppleTrack and we hired them into the sub pool, we also we entered the data in that says what their certification area is. So our first choice is to match those people, and then, after they all get matched, then the others fall into place. So yeah.
Kind of from looking at these numbers, page one, kind of clerical, 054, 055. I noticed kind of like a superintendent request quote, close to 7%, 6.78. But everybody else seems to be falling in the 5% range.
The reason why, if we'll have to do this in the program, and I can do this for you, we're projecting more money this year in that account. We're overspent. So if you take what is overspent and what we're asking, the raise of that account only goes up 2.2%. We're projecting
Correct, okay.
$2.4 million that we're going to spend in that account this year.
Right.
Okay, so the rate, with those people, it's only 2.2% increase. I'm going to have to do that because see if we can do it in the program where you have the projected and you see next to it, because some of these aren't going up, like the one before that, registered nurse. Okay, it's over budgeted this year, so the projected is 648,000 versus 588, and it's a 1.3% increase. So I'm going to have to put another column in there to show you what the projections are.
Okay. So why, geez, that's a curveball. Why?
It was a spitter, wasn't a curve.
Then why wouldn't, I guess my question, why wouldn't the tallies under superintendent be projections? Why would they be superintendent?
That's the, maybe I'm not saying it right.
Perhaps I'm.
Right, no, I'm not saying
sorry.
right. Superintendent, that's what that's our budget for next year.
Correct.
Okay, we should put a column in before that and say projections 2011, 2012. Superintendent is 2012, 2013. So it has to be a column in between that says 2011, projected 2011, 2012. Because when you get the financials, you'll see a number of accounts that will be overspent. And those should flow through here to show you what I'll have to see if we can put that.
So our actual expense for this calendar year, for this budget year, is going to be less than what is
Correct.
stated here as far as the budget.
Correct.
Ah, okay.
Correct.
Okay.
The board will experience the line item transfers, will come forward and say, we're overspent here, we're underspent here, we'll transfer this to balance and things like that.
What I like to do with transfers and is not do them until the very end, because you really don't get a picture of what you're spending on each account.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, all of a sudden, we didn't budget correctly for, pick out supplies, okay? So why did we? So if you make that transfer, you really don't know that you budget incorrectly for supplies. So we want to know that. So we do that towards the end, so we know where we stand. I'd rather do that way, so it's an actual. We say, oh, what happened? What happened to registered nurses. Why are we spending more? Well, here of a sudden, we have to look at, we have the payroll count, I have everybody who's in this budget on our account, so we know, oh, last year, you forgot to put somebody here and so forth, so we went through every payroll to make sure that it's in the correct account. So you're gonna see those changes in some of those areas.
Within the needle movers, within those big budget items, do you guys have any suggestions as far as what's necessary, what we can do as a board to adjust, correct, fix, deflate, reduce them?
That's a Bill question.
That's what I'm kind of leaning.
He's
That's what I was looking at it
He
for,
could-
Michelle.
Check, please. I'm looking at, things like the assumptions that we're making would definitely fall in that category. If, and we're, as a committee, we're working through this right now, getting the feeling from the board. Staff has come forward saying, this is what our principals have told us, this is what our central office administrators have told us, this is what we're looking at. We have some challenges with technology, for example. The next board meeting, we'll be sharing those with the board. Our infrastructure is aging. Some of our computers are 7, 8 years old. So we'll come forward saying we have an issue. We'd like to suggest that we move up in this area. As we start going through this process and we start getting feedback from the board, first in the subcommittee, well, guys, maybe we're looking at more like a 4% request as opposed to something higher. Okay, we go back and we say, the board says, what can you, your question right now is, what can you do to drive this down? Well, our 7-year-old computers might be 8-year-old computers, so we just will move that piece forward. If you recall, we weren't on the last meeting, but we had $130,000 in our professional development budget, and this year the actual is the final is $34,000. So we got roughly $100,000 on professional development for that very reason. So we'll share it with the full board saying, here's what we can cut because we have discretionary funding, 2+%. Here's the impact on that. It may mean then that we shave money off textbooks. I have a number of parents call me saying, why are we using class sets? Why doesn't my child get a separate book to take home every night? We decided to bring our budget request down. Discretionary funding, textbooks, we decided to cut that back. Typically, we'll wait till the very end after we see how things shake out before we put those ideas on the table. Because we're really trying to hold the school system intact the best we can. If we don't get our full budget, then we'll be less of a school system next year than we were this year, as we have been for the past, I think it's 88.886.
Less than 1% of the past 3 years.
Right, so that has not allowed us to meet our fixed cost needs, so we've had to cut across the board.
Right.
And that's where freshman sports comes up, and the
Right,
gifted program,
sure.
and so on and so forth. But before we recommend those things, that's when parents come forward and say, this is important to us. In the absence of having parents come forward, we put that cut forward. We had French on the line. Last year, parents came forward and said, this is really important to us. We put forth family consumer science. Folks did not come forward. We said, okay, that's the will of the community. So we use, again, that vetting process takes place over time before we'll come forward and say, give us a number, we'll cut it back right now. But there's another sidebar to that, and that is that we're making notes on everything that you're sharing with us tonight. We'll go into cabinet on Tuesday morning and say, from the finance committee, this is what we were looking at. Mr. Hawley said that he and Mr. Ginelli are suggesting maybe 4% as a target. So we start as a cabinet, we start looking at, with the whiteboard opened up, we start putting ideas up there. And we come up with scenario after scenario after scenario. Last year, I believe we ran close to 100 scenarios, Ken, right?
I'm sorry?
On the whiteboard,
Yeah.
we were close to 100 scenarios.
Right.
And we kept moving them around, and it took hundreds of hours of work to do that, until eventually we came back with our best recommendations. So that's typically the process that we'll go through.
The only comment I want to have just about the needle movers, the biggest one obviously is the salary piece, right? I mean,
Right.
that's the hugest driver. And what we did, probably 18 months ago, right around the time I started, is we started putting together, you'll hear us talk about an FTE book. And there is a book now, and you're welcome to come and look at it, and it is broken out by building. So every school has a tab, and it shows every teacher, what they teach, what their date of hire is, where the funding source for their position is, grant or otherwise. And what we did last year was we went line by line through that book. So it says you've got this many first grade teachers at Stanley Ruff, you've got this many second grade teachers. And we looked closely at all of the things that were not graduation requirements or that were otherwise electives that was a place where we could go, because it wasn't a classroom teacher in front of these kids. It was a specialist teacher or something else. And we went through, I don't know how many times, went through the whole book, and that was how we ended up in these discussions about what were the areas where we may have some room to cut. But having done that last year, this number, this salary number, is we're down to the bare minimum. We've got a teacher in every room. We've pulled out all of the non-certified staff. So all those paraprofessionals that we had that were not IEP driven are all, for the most part, gone. And this is the number of people that are in those classrooms. Now, it's adjusted slightly because we're anticipating the enrollment increase. So we're budgeting in for 8 positions to deal with the enrollment, to make sure that there's enough science teachers at the high school, so that every kid that needs X class in science for graduation is going to be able to get it. So we built those into these adjustments. But the problem with the salary line, from my perspective, is I don't exactly know what it's going to look like. I know that we've pulled out the teachers that we can, right? And we've kept the essential ones, but we're also going to get a flood of people who retire or move on to a different job or do something else. Now, those may be step 12 people. Those could be people earning over $100,000. And we may replace them with a $47,000 a year teacher. And that's what we call the contra account. And the contra account is constantly moving. We may go out looking for a first-year ESL teacher, and it's a shortage area, and all we can find is a step 8. And that person's a lot more expensive than what we thought. So it's kind of like trying to hit a moving target with some of the salary numbers. We hope it's going to come down, but this is sort of a conservative estimate. And then layer on to that it's an open question on these open contracts. We don't know where those numbers are going to come in. We can look and see where our neighbors are, and we can kind of try to predict, if we go to binding arbitration, what the number could be, and that's what we've tried to budget for, but we don't know what that number is going to look like either. So that's a long way, and this is part of the conversation I had with the city today. That's a long way of saying that we're trying to be as reasonable as we can in pulling out the bare bones salary number that we think we need to move forward. But for a lot of different reasons, it may kind of bounce a little bit on us. We just don't know.
We don't know how many retirees, so every person who's here today is in there. So we don't know, nobody has given us their letter of retirement.
Well, what has past history told us as far as offering an early retirement package?
I think last year we budgeted for 5 or 8, and I think we had maybe 20. And that was fairly consistent, except in the year when we did the early retirement package, where you're still seeing that rolling through the budget, because we funded the money to let people retire early. Yeah, it was a 5-year plan. I think we're in year 4.
Next year will be...
Next year's year 4.
No, 3.
Three.
So it's not even as far along.
Yeah.
And
you're $1 million a year.
And so
So a
that year we
savings of $1 million a year.
No.
No.
That's in the
We
budget
have
to
to
pay out $1
fund
million.
expense.
Upfront savings
Yeah.
when they retire, but we're paying them each year
Correct.
for a set number of years as their incentive to go. So we have a liability built in day one, just
To protect, exactly.
Mhm. So I would say a conservative estimate is maybe a dozen. We budget 5 or 6, hoping we'll get more, but it's not as many as you would think. I mean, I would have thought it would have been a lot more, and it really isn't. And that may be due to the economy, and it could be due to any number of things, but we're not.
Part of it was the early retirement program.
Right.
We had 70 or 72 people, and, that was just when I was going out, and many of them were just coming up with a few more years to go. And I'll be honest, you've exhausted the vast pool, at least in the high school that I know, who would have considered early retirement. And again, what it comes down to is the medical cost is one of the big factors that holds people in usually.
People who have not reached 65 will not retire until they reach 65, so they can go on to
The
state
city
plan.
picked up on it, so get out of here with yourself.
I can pick it up on what Kim was saying. The new board members have come in at a very challenging time. Because the cuts that we were capable of making, those needle movers, pretty much have been made over the past 4 years. When we eliminated 17 reading specialists, we saved $1 million. So if the board turns around tonight, I'm not suggesting you do this, but if you said, well, we're talking about 4%, go back as a team and bring it in at 3%. So we're looking at $1 million plus cut. So we go back into the planning scenarios and we say, how are we going to get $1 million? Well, I hate to say it, but using freshman sports, $60,000, $70,000, that's not a needle mover. It's a small little program. If we eliminate an entire program that has 20 people employed or 17, we can save $1 million. Well, once you eliminate them, stating the obvious, you can't eliminate them twice. So we've eliminated the language arts specialists. We've eliminated the people at the middle school level, multiple programs. The reason freshman sports came on at all is after we eliminated the paraprofessionals and on and on and on, we started getting down to those minute, out of $114, $15 million budget, we're looking at $60,000 for this, $25,000 for that, shaving, $2,000 off of this. It's almost nonsensical, but that's what we actually had to do to bring it in on that line. But this year's going to be particularly challenging because the needle movers have been moved. Other than what Ed says as the assumptions that we're looking at, and hopefully we can drive down insurance costs through playing one act off the other and getting those numbers down. It's going to be very difficult this year to bring in those land the big fish in a sense.
Hold on, Kathy, please.
Yeah, I just want to say two things that I want to talk with you about, and that is, first of all, I think this committee needs to come up with a goal. Rather than the 4%, they should be saying, these are the factors that are most important to us as a board. For instance, keep teachers in front of kids at all costs. Do you want to move forward with Wi-Fi in the schools? That would be another goal. And then let our administrators do their work around that, bringing the costs down rather than giving them a target to hit 4% and then they don't know what's important to us. So I think this committee really needs to focus on what is it that we want to see in our schools, what is most important to us. And the other thing I wanted to talk to you about was that the three of us that are here, Bob and Gladys and I, negotiated those contracts with the teachers, and we did talk about insurance and a buyout. And what we had to be cautious about were the people, it wasn't just the teachers, it was the entire system that would be offered that buyout. And we had to be cautious of the people that didn't participate in our insurance system. So they would sign on saying, hey, this is 10 grand that I'm going to get if I don't. So there were no cost savings to us, is what I'm trying to say to you. Even though we tried that tactic, there was no cost savings. In fact, it would have cost us more to do it that way. So I just wanted to talk to you about those two things. That's it.
Gary?
What I wanted to talk about is, in my current profession as a real estate appraiser, we have to take continuing education courses. Not too long ago, there would be 14, 16 of us in a class with a teacher. Now there's a thing called a webinar, and there's like 240 people signed up to it, and one teacher. Can we use technology? You're talking about Wi-Fi in the schools and getting technology involved, and do that, and therefore not need so many teachers. When somebody retires, we don't have to replace them because we've, and I'm not talking technical subjects. You've got U.S. history, English, senior English was English lit when I was there. Can't these, God knows these kids are better on computers than I am. So if I can take a course on a computer, I would think we could, save some big bucks.
We've had that conversation at the negotiating table with the NEA. Obviously, their concern is they're going to lose jobs to this kind of a format. So without even getting into the curriculum piece of it, their concern is that. And it's a subject for bargaining, which means we have to negotiate with them over the replacement of teachers with webinars. We do it on a very small scale with credit recovery up at the high school. So kids that need to go back and redo a class do it in a room with a bunch of computers, and they're doing whatever class it is that they need to remake. I will tell you, it's fraught with a lot of problems about TRB and the teacher's pension and who's supervising and who issues grades, but we do it on a small scale, and that is wholly with the consent and negotiation of the union. So it will be a source of, or it will be a mandatory topic for bargaining with them about replacing teachers with computers. We've started the conversation.
We have, however, been able to mitigate the cut to professional development by participating in free webinars. And we use this room frequently, so it's a good idea. I mean, we're doing that. As Kim said, it becomes an instant hot button issue. A superintendent in a nearby town tried to do that, and it made national headlines.
Sandy?
You said something about how we had some grants that are no longer existing, but we still have personnel, and what are those? What subjects are those, and why are we continuing those grants if they're no longer
Well, when I got the
funded?
jobs grant, it was to hire teachers in the classrooms.
Right.
And that's what the board decided to do. And when that job grant ends this year, those teachers are in the budget now because they're teaching kids in different classrooms.
The rule of thumb with the board and central administration is, before we approve a grant, somebody comes forward and says, well, I'd like to have a 3-year grant, and it involves 2 teachers, and it's to do drug counseling. We had a grant called the TMT grant. It was a 3-year grant, it had 3 people in it to do drug counseling. The grant ended, those 3 people went away, and that program was eliminated. The jobs money was to put classroom teachers into classrooms. If we had the experience of some of our neighbors where we have declining enrollment, they would go away as well. In our case, as we were growing, we had to add teachers, so it just became, they washed right in with us.
So you just increase staff, basically, that's really nothing to do with a grant.
And I'm just looking at the list. I mean, what we did was we had the option of taking that $1.2 million and spreading it over time if we so chose. And what we did was we spread it over 2 years with the hope that we could use it to fund, what we typically increase 6 to 8 teachers a year for enrollment purposes. And we split it over 2 years. And I'm just looking now at the list of the names of the people who we paid out of that grant, and they're all classroom teachers. There's a lot of elementary school teachers, and there's some middle school teachers, and they're all frontline classroom teachers. And I think that I wasn't here at the very beginning, but I know the conversations I was involved in later were, if the priority coming on the board is to keep these teachers in classrooms, and this is how we can do it, and we can see 2 years do it, because we'll figure out later how we're going to keep them there because we have the money to do it.
No, I totally agree with Kathy in making the remark concerning, we're not just going to say to administration, let's deal with 4%. Let's see what would be the priority of what this committee and the board want to set forth to move forward. Okay? And we all are sitting on these various committees because we know the first thing that we want to do is keep teachers in school. So that should be our top. And then we start with there, then come down and give them a list of what we think will be the 4 top priority, and see, I'm not a financial person, but see what could we come up with if 4%, is that something that we can work with the administration. Just the other night, one of the common council people made a comment, and I think we all need to keep that in mind. The city has the money, okay? The board needs the money, okay? We need to work together, and it has been a lot of animosity in the last couple of years about the board, and it always has happened, like the gentleman stated the other night, that the school system had excess money. And I think I read it last year in the paper, and I called this Dr. Sanders and said, I hate this. Every year, at the end of the year, June or July, you pick up the paper and say, the Danbury schools have extra money that they haven't used. But then we come back to Ed's point about reconciling and paying those bills, and all the information don't come out until that time of the year. So we need to be conscious as to what we're doing and how we're doing it. And I think we need to continue to work with the council to we know that we're not going to get, we go before them, we just about know what we're going to get and what we're not going to get. But let's make a good stand as to say, this is what we're looking for to continue the education process, a good education process for all the children here in the city.
I
I could not agree more. It's kind of, again, my, so to speak, tone or direction, that if we have that play within the needle movers, then we can support everything else kind of beneath it. The gifted programs. You know, first and foremost, without a questionable doubt, we have to keep the teachers in front of the students. There's no question about it. However, if we can get some concessions, again, on those big ticket items, and all of a sudden, there's money available for curriculum development, for teacher development, for professional days, professional development, for everything, you know, because that's where the biggest piece of the pie comes from. Another, you know, issue or concern that Richard has raised, and I have to agree with him, and, you know, I hope I speak for the rest of the committee, and, you know, really put it out to him, but is a 3-year strategic plan that I really feel that we need. This Task Force 2020 is going to place 18 classrooms, 2014, 2015. Well, that's 18 teachers, which translates to be approximately $1.5 million. That's going to come up, and it'll clearly come up. So I think we need to somehow put together, and whether it's us as a board member or in conjunction with, but some type of 3-year, 5-year strategic plan of action, so that it's not a total surprise to both the citizens as well as the common council and the mayor to say, hey, listen, you know, this is it, and this is why. And we got to be, we got to be proactive as far as that regard. I also feel, you know, as Richard does, that we need to be proactive within our negotiations to let's open the door up as far as this HSA. That it shouldn't be part of the negotiation. It should be knowledge, getting them the information and forms so that come negotiation time, everybody has some type of, you know, a working knowledge about this program.
We're gonna do that this year. Kim and I have spoken to do that, to start the process where education of people.
Correct.
You know, I mean, a number of districts have gone. Some of them negotiated just the HSA, period. You know what I mean? So, and people are afraid of that because they don't know what it is.
It's different.
Right.
Mhm.
So we're gonna start educating people this year, probably April, once the budget is
Correct.
finished and all that. Start educating people, showing them that HSA is not that bad. You know what I mean? It does cover a lot of items that, even though there is a upfront cost that people have to put in, but they don't realize the HSA, you can put in X amount of dollars every year, and it's like a 403B contract. You keep that money.
Sure.
That's your money. That's your investment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there is a the Feds, the IRS says you only can put in whatever that is.
There's
that
a
limit.
cap, correct.
A cap, just like the 403B has a cap of 16,000. This also has a cap, but now you have 2 vehicles of investments instead of one, and it goes with you. It's that doesn't end, and the board takes the money away. So we have to educate people.
I have 2 other thoughts on that, because that was, again, a topic that the city is very much on the same page with you on this longer range planning. And that's why you see, as they're negotiating their contracts, that they're looking not just at the health insurance, but at the pensions as well. Now, for us, you know, that doesn't directly reflect on our budget, but it does in the sense that we end up contributing to, you know, some amounts out of our budget in order to fund the shortfall in the pension. So it indirectly affects us, I guess, but you don't see it right on our balance sheet. So those long-range targets, the things that are going to make the most change over time, are the ones that we're all trying to kind of address carefully. With the HSA, which they've had for a little bit of time now with their municipal employees, their plans were an option, so you could either go to the HSA or to the PPO. They have less than 10 people in the HSA. So it doesn't do them much good because the group is so small, they're not getting savings because of the experience ratings. So there's this really crazy balance of educating everybody and getting people to buy in to actually take advantage of what I think actually is a really great idea. But it's this education, because even at the city where they've had it, they can't get enough people buying into it yet.
Well, the negotiations which we'll be having this summer, as far as contracts that are ending June, I mean, has that been approached to them? The HSA, the entire
Yes,
the information
yes.
in the packet and all
Yes, yes. They haven't gotten a packet from us, but the people that, the union representatives who come to the table to negotiate these contracts work in all of the districts in the state, so they're in dozens of places. So they're coming with their experience negotiating HSA in West Hartford, negotiating one in, Windsor, wherever it is. So they are coming with a fair amount of knowledge about what's going on. The other piece that I've had more than one of them say, because I see a lot of these people at least once a month for a lot of different reasons, and they'll tell me, the other thing that they're seeing is this pool, the state pool that Ed was talking about earlier, that Blue Cross and Oxford are in. So you're seeing them looking just as we are at a lot of varieties of options, and I don't think our experience has been particularly controversial in terms of moving them. They've been very amenable to moving plans that are more or less equivalent, but they may result in savings. I think it's just that this one, this HSA notion is still relatively new, and we've had a couple of new things over the last couple of years that have not reaped the savings that we thought they would, and so people are skittish about what these changes mean. And I think that's just part of rolling it out and trying to figure out exactly whether the numbers are right.
But I guess a concern that I would have is that the bargaining unit might have information concerning, but do their members?
That I don't know.
Right, and that's where perhaps, it might make sense to put a newsletter out to them. With clearly with approval as far as the negotiating team or as well as the union, but just to say, hey, put it in front of the members, not necessarily the bargaining, or the bargaining members. So it's still the members that are going to have to pull the trigger. Okay. I think we as a committee got to kind of meet into both Gladys's as well as Kathy's, recommendations to come up with a pure kind of plan of action, course of action as far as what we're looking for within the budget and what we're comfortable with to go to the mayor with and to approach the entire board. If I could ask, do you guys have any other comments or oh, I'm sorry, Sandy. Yeah, please.
I think I can only speak for myself. I don't know about the other board members, but I want to. My philosophy of this whole thing is to try and keep as much money in the K through 12 area as possible, because that's who we're here for, and it's just critical that we focus on those areas. So if monies are going elsewhere, I think that's something that we need to really seriously look at. Also, when we say we get matching funds, we still have to put out that money to get the matching funds. So are there any other programs out there that we're paying into as for matching funds? Those kind of programs that, we look at and say, oh, well, we're going to get, 15,000, whatever it is. Because you know what, the 15,000 and 30,000 and the 40,000, they all add up. So.
Ken,
Okay.
at the risk of whipping a dead horse, if we're going to, when we come up with these new classrooms, have to add 18 teachers there, and I think with the budget we're adding 8 because of enrollment things. If we did the webinar thing and eliminated the need for 8 teachers and then added 8 teachers into these new positions, we would therefore be balanced out. We wouldn't be eliminating teaching positions. Is that still a problem with the union?
Yes. Yes. I suspected that we would be in arbitration long over that, because I know of at least one situation where it did explode, and I suspect that's the hot issue of our day, really.
But they can't say we're eliminating teaching positions, we're just.
Well, we're eliminating
staying
those,
even.
yeah, we're supplanting.
The only place where that concept, which again, I applaud the board for being creative thinkers, the only place that's really worked with the union is where they've said, we don't offer Russian. So if you want to do something on Russian, because you're not taking away a job, there's nobody out there to hire, we're willing to talk to you about it. If you're talking about taking away a 3rd grade teaching position, they're guns blazing. The other thing, just a quick point of clarification, when we've been meeting as a 2020 task force, numbers get out there, 18 classrooms, 15 classrooms, but there is no definite number of classrooms yet being added. It's just in the feasibility study piece. The other part, just maybe a closing part for me, we monitor on a monthly basis every single classroom in Danbury, K-12. So I can tell you that within a 30-day period, there are 27 kids in this room, room 101, 28 kids in this classroom, 19 in this classroom. And so the number 8 new teachers comes from a very tight metric with one caveat, and that is at the elementary level, the mobility rate is so great, in city and out of city. We look at, we're looking at South Street right now. And so one of those teachers is tentatively positioned for a South Street slot, depending on what happens with the kindergarten enrollment. If we have a repeat of kindergarten going up, then that'll push it up, the mushroom gets higher, and we have to put a teacher there. If the kindergarten enrollment doesn't pan out, which it hasn't in some cases, we would need that 8th teacher. The STEM program has 100 6th graders, 100 7th graders, 50 8th graders. Those 50 8th graders go to 9th grade this coming year. We bring a new 100 6th graders in. 100, we need those 2 teachers to take the 8th grade. Where we have 50 kids, now we have 100. We put 4 teachers up there instead of just 2. So those are pretty tight metrics. We know where we are with that. The last thing at the high school level, Danbury has been known for decades for having a tremendously rich elective program. Bob, I'm sure, will attest to that. We were over 350 programs at one point in time. We have systematically been cutting back on the electives. If you have 12 kids in a class, don't come to us and say, I need a teacher to run some very specialized program. We would love it. It's a wonderful thing instructionally for kids. But we can't afford to pay a teacher a full salary, the benefits package that we've talked about for 12 youngsters. So we're staffing at 25, 26, 27, 28, 29 kids in a class now. Not necessarily because we want to, but because financially, and it goes back to your point, Rich, in the beginning, we're suggesting to the team maybe 4% because we want to be fiscally responsible to the taxpayers. And we certainly get that. So that's why we've tried to tighten up. We've gone, K2, as you know, was 20 kids per classroom. K1 is now 22, and 2.5 is 25. So we've tried to do all those little things that we can to tighten our belts, like the way homeowners would, folks who run households. The last big ticket item I can think of, the needle mover, we closed Millbridge Intermediate. That was another big thing putting forward. But as our enrollment is growing, that's on the horizon, opening as a middle school. And we're going to have to go back. Your point, we're going to have to staff all those classrooms that, not for STEM, because they'll be staffed, they'll move out. But as the enrollment continues to go up, if it does, that bubble moving through, that's going to take additional classroom teachers. So our bottom line automatically goes up, whether we want it to or not. That's the challenge that we'll have.
The other piece that too, I don't want it to be left unsaid that the teachers aren't working with us on this, because one of the big issues we had over the last 2 contracts that we negotiated, which was an issue near and dear to Bob's heart, was the 125 student limit for teachers. So, for a long time, we were asking to loosen that, to raise it, and that means that every English teacher, under the original contract, had responsibility for no more than 125 kids, absent, extenuating circumstances like the economy. But we have, in the next contract, negotiated that up to 130. It's hard fought. I mean, these people are already stretched to the point where they can't, they're having trouble dealing with the 125. So the teachers, they come to the table, they talk about it, they've been really good about negotiating around those points, and it's hard for them. So we've tried to look at those kinds of numbers also to see if there's just any way to eke out some more efficiencies by just boosting the numbers just a bit.
If I can finish on our part with going back to what Kathy said, and Bob and Gladys and the board tried to come up with what do we stand for. And so we came up with that bullseye idea. Dead center is at all costs keep reading, writing, and math, basic skills areas, and teachers in classrooms. The next concentric circle, all mandated programs by state and federal law. I want to go back for a quick second. The K-12 programs, we're mandated to offer adult education. So we're not mandated to offer continuing ed. So as we run an enterprise fund, such as the rental program, we rent things out so we get enough money coming in, we can replace auditorium curtains, and it typically goes back into those venues. The continuing ed, correct me if I'm wrong, the continuing ed program is not mandated, but if we run it as a fee-based program, we can actually make money on the deal. That is an enterprise fund again. So we're trying to
It has to be self-sustaining.
self-sustaining. We have to attend to the mandates and at the same time try to generate revenue streams from other alternative programs. auxiliary programs.
So you're saying that adult ed is mandated by
We have our
the?
adult ed director,
Yes.
please,
Yes, it's a state mandated program. All Connecticut school districts have to offer an adult education program or be a part of a cooperative. Danbury is the cooperative, so we have 6 other districts. We are the leader, and we have 6 other districts that
They contribute
provide, they
funds.
contribute, most definitely.
But we pay a lot for that adult ed also. We contribute. We contribute nothing, we,
I can tell you exactly what we contribute. We contribute locally $292,228. And we have the majority of the 1,000 students that we service. Our cooperatives chip in $153,000, 361. And our state match is $237,939.
one other question. Is there any place that we can see what grants we have, what they entail, how, the federal money, the state money, and what we're maybe contributing? Part of it was like this curriculum thing, like if we have Title I money, but that's only K through 5, what actually do we have out there in grants? And, it would be nice to just try to be able to see what we're getting in from federal, what we're getting in from state, what we have to expend from our own budget, and how that operating budget works in that regard.
Sure. We have, when we do the financial, when Ed does the financial with the board, he'll do the general fund budget, and then we also have the state and federal.
I'll do a narrative at the second board meeting on grants.
But like not taking something from here and
No,
something
no,
from,
yeah.
but actual,
Yeah.
okay.
And we can give you, actually, if you're interested, we can give you a breakout of MSP program. What does that mean? It's the Math and Science Program. You get $250,000 a year for 3 years, I believe. What does that mean?
Right.
We can give you the narrative underneath that as well.
I just like direction because we have a board meeting Wednesday night.
Correct.
Okay. We don't have a finance meeting. We have a meeting Monday, but that's a public meeting. Do you want to give us some direction so we can talk about it on Wednesday at the board meeting, or?
You'll have it Tuesday, so I'd like to just kind of sit with the
Okay.
committee right after this,
Okay.
kind of get some direction, make sure, clarification as far as where we want to go, what we want to do, and then, with the intention of
So we can meet.
providing you some insight.
Right,
to
so
go
when
get.
we have a meeting, our cabinet meeting's Tuesday.
Okay,
If you can get it to Dr. Sal,
I'll get it to you soon.
okay, no, that's.
Okay, and in the same respect, if you can get us the information concerning our not spending, but our reimbursement as far as on a per student basis versus some of the other municipalities that you mentioned, because I think that's key, that it's, lump sum is one thing, but per pupil is a total different story.
You weren't here on,
I missed my apologies.
right, and we can give you the
Tuesday.
packet because it did have per pupil
Right,
expenses.
right.
It's on page 9.
Yeah.
It's on page 9.
Yeah.
The other thing that is in that packet too is you can see, I think Bill said it the last meeting, you can see after the number comes from the city and then we all go back to the drawing board to try to make those additional cuts, you can see in that one chart what we did and didn't do, so what's still left, if you will. Some of it we may have rendered a little bit irrelevant because we've made other staffing changes, but for the most part, I think there's not much left in there, but there may be a few other things in that chart that you might just want to go through that again too, to see if that's anything you want to pursue.
Good.
Can I sort of end on Dr. Glass can help me. On Monday night when we attended the meeting at City Hall 2020 Task Force, and there was, and I brought up again because I had in my mind this
Thank you,
number
sir.
of 18 classrooms, 17 classrooms, and this is what they're proposing. They're not giving us a number that they're going to, the addition is not going to be 18 or 17 classrooms. What the mayor had said at the meeting was each addition will have a resource room, a music room, a language art room, and what was it? Speech room. Guarantee those 4, the additions, okay? They might not come in, well, all schools will have all 4 of those, okay? And they'll have the 2020 committee is like within a 5-year plan that they are looking at, a 5-year plan. And there was a discussion that they would be, between the Common Council and the mayor that was here, they will go out in November, and they're looking for $100,000 from the voters. That's what we ended the meeting with. So.
And Mrs. Molinaro as well, the idea of keeping, it goes back to philosophically, what do we want for our children? Do we want to have an art room? Do we want to have a music room? Do we need to have the special ed breakout rooms, etc.? So the commitment at this point is we'll keep all those rooms.
Right.
They will, what will happen is we'll reprogram rooms that we took away, repurpose them back to being like a music room, instead of music on the stage type of thing, or in a corner of a hallway. And the additions will be typical classrooms. The question comes up with a feasibility study. At one point, somebody said, well, we put maybe 8 classrooms at Park Ave. Maybe we can, if we don't need 8 classrooms, maybe when we do the drillings, we'll find that it's too wet, we can't put any there. Or we can only put 4, maybe we'll put 2 over at Millbridge Primary. So it's very much, that's what the feasibility study that Mrs. Cooper's talking about, it's very much a work in progress. And so there's nothing finite, which we know drives people crazy. But it is a work in progress. We find out from the architects and from the engineer. Kathy, have you missed anything?
No, that's exactly right. You know, it's in its infancy stage, which I tried to say at the board meeting. In Park Avenue, for instance, the 8 classrooms, there is a gas main and a water main that run right beside it. There may be no space for 8 classrooms. So they may only be able to put 3, and which is why the sister schools are so important to us, because then we only talk about pocket redistricting, not total redistricting. And that's why that concept is so important to us. So that's about it, I think.
Yeah. There's a school system close to us, and I won't give you any more information than that because they're friends of ours. The system overbuilt, and the taxpayers supported this, and now they're finding they have way too much room. We've even knocked on doors saying, would you be interested in us partnering? We maybe rent space from you type of thing. We're trying to think as much out of the box as possible. So we definitely don't want to be in that position of having overbuilt. So we're trying to just come in right at exactly what we need.
The enrollment is what's been baffling us. I mean, it surprised the demographers. It's different from any district around us. I mean, it's literally unlike anyone we can point to that it's going up.
We're the only one growing in the region. Number 2, every demographer, and we've had some of the very best. Every demographer, the state demographer, private demographers, they've all been wrong, and they've done their live birth rates and things like this. Nobody, no one, the principal, none of the demographers, no one else in the city expected Morris Street School to grow by 70 kids this year. Suddenly they just popped up. We talked about, well, maybe they moved from the South Street area over to the Morris Street area as condominiums have gone up. We haven't seen a lot of young children in them, but what's happened is the bigger homes in certain parts of the city are being vacated by the empty nesters who move into the condos, and then large families move into the homes that were in the city to begin with. And suddenly you get this enrollment spike. We think the economy, as folks on the suburbs can't afford to live there anymore, they're starting to come in. There are all kinds of competing variables that literally on a daily basis, I'll get a call from the principal saying, I had 3 new kids registered today. Where'd they come from? And somebody else will call and say, a child just left, moved to Waterbury. Why? I have no idea, just gone. So it's this constant interplay that and that's, as Kathy said, the sister school idea. It wouldn't be for current kids, but it would be a new family moving in. If you have a contiguous boundary, instead of going on this side, you go on that side. And folks seem as the least invasive way of helping to mitigate this problem. It keeps families intact, and it keeps people from getting very angry at everyone else. So we're trying to work this very delicate balance every day.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Hello, I'm Officer Lance Brevard with the Danbury Police Department. Please remember during this holiday season to refrain from drinking and driving. Remember that your friends, families, and loved ones are out on the roadways, and we want you to have an enjoyable and safe holiday season.